Well, I think because we're full boarding, I think it was like imperative that the pastoral care was, very much put at the centre of school life, and also the fact that the boys aren't necessarily going to come forward about any issues or struggles they may be facing. They may not even be aware exactly what's going on inside, in terms of what they're feeling and struggling with. So to find words to put to those thoughts and feelings, and then to go and talk to somebody is a big step for a male student. And I can't speak for the girls' schools, but certainly for the boys, it's not easy to do. So this was a way of being a little bit more proactive in terms of our pastoral care, and also, I suppose, to make it fully professional. So rather than relying on gut feel or intuition with housemasters or tutors, where so many people fall through the cracks, because it isn't easy to pick up everyone in a school of over 600 boys. It just sort of gave the scaffolding and the structure that we needed and the framework to make sure our pastoral care was in a big space. So we just wanted to really just up level what we were doing. I think maybe the key thing on this slide is we can see that this student was very much in the middle, hitting those sort of purples and greens in terms of their tracking. They were steering quite nicely up until March of this year. And then in our latest assessment, they suddenly shot to very low self-disclosure, low trust of others, and low seeking change, and a very high trust of self, so very much sort of relying on themselves to cope with whatever was happening for them, which would be an indication that something has happened for this student, or something's going on internally for this student. So we're able to drill down and get a track over all their assessments over the last, or every assessment they've done over their school time. And then we can also then go a little bit further, and we can click on the next slide. If we were to click on that self-disclosure button, I think it would then show us a little bit more about that risk factor in particular. We could have clicked on any one of those risk factors, but it shows us the self-disclosure history, what it's like to be, how does it feel to be me around self-disclosure. It tells us how they answered the questions, so we can really drill down into each one of these risk factors and get a really good insight into it. And if we were to click on those risks at the top, my self-disclosure potential risks, which is the next slide, it gives us information around each one of those risks. And so, for example, the mental health risk: I may bottle up my feelings, which then leak or explode out. I may develop limiting or unhelpful thoughts about myself and others. I'm unlikely to seek or request guidance or support. So it would do the same for social, emotional, and learning risk. Because I know that, Robert, I think you're going to talk for a couple of minutes, like a little bit later in the segment, around the link between STEER and academic performance, because you do have insight into learning risks as well. We could have also clicked on what it feels like to be me, which is the next slide. And so on self-disclosure, we get a description for us to read as staff about what it's like to be that student. So I'll just read this out, because I think I think a lot of teachers will identify with this in terms of the pupils they work with. I like to keep my thoughts, ideas, opinions, and feelings to myself. It doesn't mean that I'm shy or introverted. I just like my privacy. I might be really chatty and spend time hanging out with others, but I'm unlikely to tell or show what is really going on for me. I prefer time alone in my own world, working independently and thinking through things on my own rather than with others. If I was struggling, you probably wouldn't know, because I'm unlikely to tell or show that anything is wrong. And I think so. I just find that sort of almost like the emotive or experiential side of it as well gives you a bit of insight into how that student thinks and feels, which can be particularly helpful. So that's for me. That's like I haven't come across any other platforms that offer that type of overall picture, and then the ability to drill down and really look at the data in detail.
It's all very well having the data, but what do you do with it next?
So I think the first couple of years we did battle with this. So I'll just share what I've done. First of all, I look at the data as a school counsellor, looking at pastoral care, seeing what it's telling us, and there's a bit more on that just now, sort of the overview. But then I would meet with the housemasters one-on-one to go through the data in their house, so that I at least knew that they were aware of the priority pupils in their house. And then over time, we drew in the assistant housemaster as well. And then we would sit with, myself, the housemaster, assistant housemaster, to write an action plan for that student. Just recently, we've now divulged that responsibility out to the tutors. So after the last assessment, we actually had all the staff meet in-house groups at the same time to write action plans for all the priority pupils in that house. And so the tutor would write, if they had a student in their tutor group who was a priority pupil, they would write an action plan for them with the support of the housemaster and or other tutors around. So it was done individually, but as a group exercise to make sure it got done. So we managed to get 35 action plans written for 37 of our priority, out of the 37 priority pupils that we have in the school. So we're very much working on the follow-up being effective this year. So it's very much guided and scaffolded by the software. So it isn't difficult to do. Essentially, I'll keep this really brief because I know we're in time, but essentially the tutor or the house group would sort of discuss why might that student be having this risk, and they sort of discuss and tick certain boxes that could be. I mean, some of it's guesswork, but it promotes some really good conversation. They then look at what could be the risks if we left the student this way, or if the student doesn't improve. They then ask you to pick a particular area, or I think it does that up front, one of the risk factors that you want to work on. Then it asks you to pick a goal, and then from that goal it asks you to pick one particular signpost. And that's what we've got here. This is a student who doesn't trust other people, and the one that the staff have gone with is to find, so that, in other words, they're recognizing the tutor may not be the right person for that student to open up to. So they want to see if there's other staff in the school that student can talk to. So that's the one they've picked. And then the action is simply for the tutor to talk to the student to see if there's any other members of staff that student trusts and would be willing to talk to. And another very simple one that I always use as an example is the student who's low self-disclosing. If the house staff are aware of that, they might simply say to that student, "What did you think of the referee's performance in the last, in the Rugby World Cup semi-final?" And again, just to draw that student out in terms of giving their honest opinion about a particular thing. So it's not high-level therapeutic interventions, very much day-to-day, low-level interventions that the student might not even be aware of the staff are doing that. And for me, that's one of the strongest points of the platform is the ability to utilize those action plans in very concrete, simple ways to subtly address issues in the boarding house.